guys, today we're going to talk about the various different pieces of culture. We're also going to talk about cultural universals, and then variation within culture and what happens whenever you encounter a culture where you just don't even know what the heck you're supposed to be doing. So there are three basic cultural components. The first are your cultural traits. A cultural trait is the smallest unit of culture. It is the simplest level. It's an individual tool, an individual act, an individual belief that's related to a particular situation or need. It's the absolute, bare bones unit of culture that you can get. So if you're looking at school as an example here, each individual pencil, each individual pen, each individual PowerPoint, each individual, piece of paper, each individual book, those are cultural traits. Cultural complexes are a cluster of interrelated traits. For example, for a football game, you need the ball, the helmets, the pad, the rules, etc. Each of those individual traits make up a cultural complex. And then at the highest level, you have cultural patterns, which are a combination of cultural complexes into some type of interrelated whole. So I just gave you the example of, the cultural complex of football. Well, that would be the cultural pattern of American sports, which would include football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, etc. Okay, so culture happens everywhere in the world, and there are some things that we see in every single culture, regardless of where they are in the world. These are called cultural universals. They're customs and practices that occur across all societies. Culture is the result of how people meet their needs. Some needs are so basic that all societies meet them. There have been over 65 cultural universals that have been identified. Now, the universal itself may be found everywhere in the world, but the cultural particular is the way that that culture expresses that universal trait. So body adornment is something that is found throughout the entire world. Here in the United States, we see women in particular pierce their ears. We see tattoos as being a form of body adornment. And you can see I have several different examples down here, of body adornment around the world, where we would look at that and say oh, that's weird. Why would someone do that? Well, I promise you that those individuals look at the tattoos that you get and the piercing of our ears and say, that's weird. Why would someone do that? It's important to understand that large cultural variation exists, but other cultural universals include things like dancing. Again, though, what's considered to be acceptable, appropriate, good dancing varies from culture to culture. The family unit is something that happens in every single culture. Again, there's large cultural variation, though. In the United States, it's oftentimes parents and their children, whereas in other cultures around the world, it might be extended family, or it might be a man, all his wives, and all their children. Gift giving, but again, what's appropriate to give as a gift, when to give as a gift, how to receive that gift, there are large variations that exist with that. And you'll see that I have a video for you at the end here, 10 surprising ways in which to offend people from around the world, and you'll see that it plays into that. Spoiler alert. Okay, so for as much as we have cultural universals, we also see a lot of variation within societies, and you can see variation within a particular, what we consider to be a larger culture. So if we're looking at the larger culture of the United States, we can also see variation within that culture. Subcultures are unique cultural characteristics of groups that are not shared by the entire population. So you can have several different subcultures. I guarantee you belong to a subculture. Age is in of itself a subculture. Different generations have different attitudes about minorities, homosexuals, premarital sex, living together prior to marriage, all those kinds of things. More prominent, maybe, example of a subculture within the United States are the Old Order Amish. So the Old Order Amish are strong in their faith in God. They reject worldly concerns. They have very conservative views about family, women are subordinate to men. Birth control is considered to be unacceptable. They cherish their children. You have an average of 4 to 7 kids per household. Subcultures do not, generally speaking, disrupt the larger society. They exist, and we don't consider them to be, I don't think any of us are, fearful that the Amish are going to start, taking us over and, get rid of our rights and, become dominant. It's probably not going to happen. Subcultures are beneficial because it helps individuals within those subcultures aid in terms of adjustment. It can help first-generation immigrants survive the abrupt changes in material and non-material culture that they encounter when moving to a new culture. It can also serve as a buffer against discrimination. You aren't discriminated against when you are around others who are like yourself. However, subcultures may also be the result of economic or social disadvantage. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation where you can't escape the subculture, in which case it no longer becomes advantageous. In addition to subcultures, we also have countercultures. Countercultures are subcultures that actively reject the values of larger society. They challenge the values of the larger society. We often consider them to be disruptive. An example of this would be like religious cults or biker gangs, gang activity of any kind, really. Young people are more likely to engage in counterculture activity. The big draw to countercultures is belonging. We all have this need to belong, and that's what countercultures really rely upon in order to bring people in. And that's why young people are a little bit more likely to join a counterculture, because a lot of times they're kind of like a little lost in life and looking for where they should go and where they belong. Culture shock occurs whenever you are disoriented because you encounter a culture that is radically different than your own. You oftentimes don't know how to react because you don't even know what you're doing wrong. Frequently, people won't tell you, oh, hey, by the way, you're not supposed to do this. You're just like getting weird looks from people and things like that. And you know, like, I'm not doing something right, but I also don't know what I'm doing wrong. Final thing we're going to talk about for today is ethnocentrism, which is the tendency to view one's own culture and group as being superior. Every single society views what they do as being the best way to do it. Like, why would you continue to do something that wasn't the best way to do it? So ethnocentrism is not something that is unique to people of the United States. Do we have a tendency to believe that the way that we do things is the best way to do things? Absolutely. Guess what? The people of Korea believe that the best way to do things is the way that the Koreans do it. The people of Serbia believe the best way to do things is the way the Serbians do it. People of Russia believe the best way to do things is the way that the Russians do it. So this can be both positive and negative. It can be positive because it serves as a bonding between all of us. It can also be negative, however, in that extreme ethnocentrism can make you reluctant to borrow ideas from other cultures, and they may actually be doing it better than what you are. So whenever we encounter other cultures, like, how should we judge what they do? Because again, like, if you take someone from a culture that is very different than ours and transplant them here to the United States, they're going to think that some of the things that we do, say, dress, whatever, are weird. So there's this real movement now in sociology to judge other cultures with cultural relativism, which is the belief that you should judge them by their own standards. So, like, for example, some people may say, well, why do people of India not eat cows whenever they have a relative abundance of cows and they also have people who are starving? But if you look closer, you realize that more people can sustain nourishment through like the milk of the cow and things like that rather than just slaughtering the cow. So sometimes we need to like look a little deeper to figure out why people are doing things the way that they're doing. However, if we take cultural relativism too far, it could be seen as an excuse for the violation of human rights. Things like cannibalism, denying individuals like a right to education, things like that. There's no real justification for that. You do not have any assignment tonight. Just take a look at the video I've attached for you about the 10 surprising ways in which you can offend someone. And then next time we'll pick up with the difference between pop culture and high culture and the difference between fads and fashions. I hope you all are doing well. I miss you.